Well, President Trump visited the Queen of England today as part of his trip to Europe. The Queen has now met with 11 of the last 12 American presidents. On this occasion, the visit was brief. We're told about 47 minutes. Her Royal Highness had tea with the president and First Lady Melania Trump. CBSN royal contributor Victoria Arbiter joins us now to discuss their meeting today at Windsor Castle. Victoria, everyone's talking about the 47-minute meeting that went 17 minutes longer than expected. There's so much royal protocol to this. What do you make of the meeting that we've heard so far?
Well, I think the fact that it went 17 minutes over indicates that everything went quite well. Royal timing is something of a militaristic art form, and things very rarely run over. So the fact that it did means that they were probably quite enjoying their conversation and enjoying their time together.
You know, you think of everything with the Queen as being prim and proper, and I don't think prim and proper is probably the way you would describe Donald Trump.
No, certainly not.
So how does the Queen prepare for maybe somebody who might not be as reserved as she is?
Well, after 66 years on the throne, you can imagine the Queen has sort of run into all types of different kinds of people. But interestingly, again, over the course of her reign, at the request of the British government, she has met with a number of controversial figures. She's had to entertain them. She's really I suppose, the secret weapon in terms of soft diplomacy. But she's entertained Ceausescu, Mugabe, Putin, Assad. So today, Donald Trump perhaps became another in terms of controversial figures. But I think as well, he probably was very keen not to offend her. He's talked about his respect for her, talked about how much of a fan Melania is. He's even talked about the fact that his mother really adored the Queen. And so I think he would have wanted to make a good impression. And certainly when he arrived, he looked like he was on his best manners.
Yeah, it certainly did appear that way. And the Queen flashed a huge smile the whole time as she's shaking his hand. How does she prepare for something like this? And when you don't want to wade into controversial territory, we know she reads the papers, and she must have seen that article with the Sun criticizing her own Prime Minister on Brexit.
Yes, absolutely. The Queen is very well versed. She will have been briefed across the board, and really it's her job to stay on top of what's happening in the country. Having said that, she's also a politically neutral head of state. She can't get into that territory. So her job today would have been to lay on the royal hospitality, which in itself is an art form. And she will have made sure that both the Trumps felt incredibly welcome, that they received a warm reception, and that they left Windsor Castle having experienced something very special. She's well aware that an opportunity like this comes along once in a lifetime for many people. It's unlikely the Trumps will have an opportunity to meet the Queen again. And so really her job today was to make sure that it was a wonderful experience from beginning to end.
You know, my favorite royal we always talk about is Prince Philip.
Yes, I love that you love him.
I love him so much. Where is he today? Why wasn't he there?
A number of people actually were surprised that he wasn't in attendance, but he did retire last summer at 97 years old. He's finally putting his feet up. He's the longest serving consort in British history, and I think he's earned the right perhaps to put his feet up. He's also well aware that the Queen's got this. She's such an expert when it comes to soft diplomacy, and she will have been able to handle this. So she wouldn't have been entirely alone. There was a lady in waiting in the room as well as her private secretary. And so there would have been a nice little group, little being the operative word, but it means that there would have been personal time afforded to the Trumps.
I actually think it could be a reality show, Prince Philip and Donald Trump together on a road trip.
Can you imagine? That's the show we would all want to be a fly on the wall for.
I think so too. I think he is such a hoot. I want to also ask you, why is it that the Queen has such affinity over the years? You know, when you hear about her history and how Churchill sort of took her under his wing, why does she have such affinity for America and really cherish, it seems, when she meets with American presidents?
The Queen does have an affinity for America. She enjoyed all of her trips to the US. She had a really nice friendship with Ronald Reagan. The two of them used to go riding together.
Yeah.
He was the one president that she visited privately. In as much as she takes a holiday, she spent a little bit of holiday time with the Reagans. I think the Queen appreciates the American optimism. She loves the sense of hope here. She loves the idea that you can come here and make a go of it, that anything is possible. And I actually think in terms of meeting Donald Trump, she probably would have been quite curious to meet him. He's probably the least diplomatic of all the presidents that she's ever met. She knows he's something of a loose cannon. And frankly, when everything always goes so perfectly around the royal family, they quite enjoy it when things go wrong.
As we saw with the wedding.
As we saw, exactly. They like things to be a little bit unexpected. It kind of humanizes the situation. And so I think today she will have offered them sublime hospitality, and I think both sides will have enjoyed the interaction.
It was actually funny during the royal wedding with Meghan and Harry to see them get the giggles during the sermon at one point. Things went a little bit interesting at that moment. I want to also ask you, though, there was that, I think, very special photo of President Obama with Prince George in his bathrobe.
Yes.
It's actually one of my favorite photos during the Obama administration. I don't guess he's going to be meeting with Prince George at this point.
No. Donald Trump won't be meeting with any other members of the royal family. This trip was downgraded from a state visit due to protests, quite loud and unruly protests across the UK last summer. So it was billed as a working trip, and as such, it means that the Trumps were not given a plush state dinner at Buckingham Palace. They didn't have the carriage procession. They didn't have a lot of the pomp and pageantry that a state visit would incorporate. But it's also worth mentioning that actually only the Obamas and George W. Bush they've been the only US presidents to have a state visit. But the pageantry was still on display today. The Coldstream Guards provided the honour guard. There was a royal salute. They played the national anthem. And so he did get a little taster of what England is so famed for. But no, really, the Queen is the star of the royal family. She's the highest ranked. She is the head of state. She was the important member to meet today.
You know, there are just some protocols that you always follow when you're with the Queen. And there are some protocols that you continue to follow when you're not with the Queen. One of them, I would say, unspoken, is Twitter.
Yes.
Is she concerned that he might tweet something about their private conversations?
I definitely think she will have been well aware of the president's tweeting habits, and as such, she will have been that much more careful what she said behind castle walls. I hope he honours the protocol in this instance. It really is vulgar, for want of a better word, to tweet about private conversations with members of the royal family. It's just not done for anybody. But of course, the president gets very excited about things, and he wants to express how he felt about something. He quite likes to grandstand sometimes, and I think he just will have been so proud to have had an opportunity to meet the Queen. It remains to be seen whether or not he can restrain himself in terms of tweeting about their private interaction.
Victoria Arbiter, always a pleasure to have you on set, Victoria.
Thank you.